Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. This podcast is dedicated to EAS employees of the U.S. Postal Service and members of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. So, pour yourself a cup of coffee and join us for today's episode. And now, here's your host, Robert Wakefield.
Good morning, Branch 32, and good morning to all of our EAS friends across the country. Welcome to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. I'm your host, Robert Wakefield, president of Branch 32. That's right. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. Got a good show for you today, so let's go ahead and let's pour that first cup. Mark your calendars, May the 28th from 11 to 1, it's National Burger Day. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union will be serving up juicy hamburgers, crispy chips, and an ice-cold drink, all while supplies last. It's our way of saying thank you to our amazing members and community. Great service, great benefits, and now great hamburgers. Stop by, grab a bite, and see why our credit union is the best place for you. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. Well, the news just keeps coming. It just doesn't seem to stop when it comes to the Postal Service. There's always something new to talk about, and today is no exception. I'm going to be talking today about maybe one of the most controversial and consequential, it's a big word I like to use every now and then, appointments in recent USPS history. We're going to be talking about the newly appointed Postmaster General David Steiner. He is the 76th Postmaster General that we have had, and we're going to talk about his background. We'll look at some of the reactions, and we'll get to all that stuff. So I hope you have your cup of joe handy, because this is going to be a really interesting topic to discuss. So let's get right to it. So who is David Steiner? Now, before I get into any of the controversial stuff, I wanted to break down who he is and why his appointment matters, okay, why it makes such a difference. David Steiner is 67 years old, and he comes from this background that, frankly, is nowhere close to being rooted in a public postal service. Instead, he's another businessman with extensive experience in the corporate logistics and waste management and things of that nature. So it's another businessman. Now, how has that worked out for us so far? We've had Marvin Runyon, Carvin Marvin, as they called him. And then we had Louis DeJoy, which, Louis, I guess they all did some good things in their time. But here's another businessman that doesn't know a thing about the Postal Service, except for what he does know. He gets a letter in a package every now and then. But here's an interesting thing. He served as the CEO of Waste Management, which is, a private company, and it's known for its nationwide operations that handle garbage and recycling and things of that nature as well. But beyond that, here's the really kicker. He was on the board of FedEx, which is a direct competitor to the USPS in parcel delivery. But he has resigned from his position at FedEx in light of this new appointment that he has. Now that Steiner has stepped into this role, it's historically been filled by individuals who know a lot about the Postal Service. But given the Postal Service's financial losses, the USPS Board of Governors are turning to corporate leaders, it seems like, just to help stabilize and modernize the service. Now, I don't know if this business first mindset is going to work or not. We'll just have to wait and see. But the financial struggles of the Postal Service are real. And to understand why he was chosen, we just got to look at these challenges that the USPS faces. The latest quarterly report, I don't know if you've seen this, showed that the USPS recorded a $3.3 billion loss in the previous quarter, which is more than double than this time last year. And here's a stat that I read. Since 2007, the Postal Service has lost a combined $108 billion. That is amazing. That is just incredible. So they're turning, the Board of Governors feels like by turning over to people with corporate experience, maybe they can reverse that. Of course, we had the Delivery for America plan while Postmaster General Louis DeJoy was here, and it was meant to, stabilize the Postal Service, the agency, if you will. And it faced some pushback due to price hikes. There were scheduled price hikes and declining service. And so it got a little pushback as far as that's concerned. But, one of the biggest fears about this David Steiner is the fear of privatization. And the loudest to complain about this is none other than the unions. The National Association of Letter Carriers and the American Postal Workers Union have both voiced very strong oppositions to his appointment. Mark Diamondstein, I think that's how you say that, or Diamondstein, the guy from the Postal Workers Union, he warned that Steiner's background suggests a profit-driven agenda that could harm public postal services. He fears that the Postal Service could follow a trajectory of cost-cutting and layoffs and service reductions, which would harm both workers and customers. But even outside of union circles, President Trump and billionaire Elon Musk have publicly floated the idea of privatizing the Postal Service in the past. Now, Steiner has not explicitly endorsed privatization, and his critics believe his appointment is a step in that direction. So that's some of the voices that are against David Steiner. So there are voices that are in favor of David Steiner. Not everyone sees his appointment as a bad move, and some argue that his business expertise is exactly what the Postal Service needs to turn things around. One of those supporters is Amber McReynolds, who is the chairperson of the U.S. Board of Governors, and she argues that Steiner's expertise in corporate logistics will help the Postal Service to deliver and develop innovative solutions. Even Frederick Smith, you know that name? That's right, founder of FedEx. He praised Steiner as a sharp business mind, able to streamline operations. And Kevin Yoder, the head of Keep US Posted, believes Steiner will help the Postal Service find alternatives to constant postage rate hikes, which have hurt businesses and everyday mail users. So, the question is this: is it efficiency or is it erosion? Will Steiner bring necessary reforms, or will he steer the U.S. Postal Service towards corporate takeover? Well, that remains to be seen. We expect to see David to take his position sometime in July. He has to go through the ethics and security clearance process. So once he assumes the role, one of his first challenges is balancing cost-cutting measures while keeping the Postal Service public. And he's got 435 bosses, known as Congress. He answers to a lot of people, and I don't know if he's ready for that or not. But it's certainly going to be an interesting time for the Postal Service when he does take over. So, what do you think? What do you think about David Steiner? Let me know at SaturdayCupOfJoe@gmail.com, and let me know what your thoughts are. If they're really good, if anybody sends me anything, I'll share it right here, and we'll talk about it. But we have a new Postmaster General, and his name is David Steiner. Now, I have to tell you this right up front, just so, well, toward the end of this, I've got to let you know, I put my application in, and I did not even get an interview. So I know you're shocked to hear that. I was shocked to tell you, to be honest. All right. So that's going to do it for our first cup. Let's get ready to pour that second cup. Have you visited our website lately? The Nashville Post Office Credit Union's website makes banking easy. You can complete transactions, you can apply for some loans, and now you can explore our brand new events page created to honor our 100th anniversary. Stay connected with updates, celebrations, and special member-exclusive events. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay even more connected. Visit npocu.org. The Nashville Post Office Credit Union, people helping people since 1925. And for our second cup today, I want to remind Branch 32 members of your meeting that's coming up on Tuesday, May the 20th at 6 p.m. at the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. We're looking forward to seeing all of you there. That's actually moved up a week. We normally meet on the 4th Tuesday of the month, but because of the Memorial Day holiday, that Tuesday after Memorial Day would probably not be a good time to meet. So we moved it up a week. It is actually going to be on May the 20th at 6 p.m. at the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is Bob Levy sent out an email this week talking about how important it is that we urge our congressmen to reject that postal and federal retirement cuts package. We talked about this in the last podcast. If you didn't catch that, go back and listen to that. It's really informative. And the thing is, the results have been disappointing. He sent out 19,000 emails, and in the state of Tennessee, we've only had 57 people. Just 57. Now, we got to do better than that. If you're listening this in other state, be sure you go to the Legislative Action Center at naps.org and be sure to let your congressman know that you are against this particular part of legislation. Now, here's the thing. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, wants to put this to a vote before Memorial Day. So you've got this week and next week, and that's it. And we need to make a difference. So if you have not done that yet, please go in there and do that, because it is so, so very important that we get our message heard that this is bad legislation for us. It does away with the first supplement, which would hurt a ton of people. And it has other provisions in it as well. And the details, again, are in the previous podcast. So go in there and check that out. So just wanted to make mention of those two things. And I guess that's going to do it for today. Shout out to Tom Hughes from Branch 100. Tom, thanks so much for your email. Really do appreciate you sending that my way. And if you are listening anywhere in the country, tell me what branch you're listening from. I would love to give you a shout out as well. Thanks so much for listening to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast presented by the Nashville Post Office Credit Union. Really do appreciate you listening. Now share this with everybody you know. Tell people, share it, like it, subscribe. This is the only podcast that Branch 32 has. All right. Thank you again for listening. I'm Robert Wakefield. And remember, every great weekend starts with a great cup of Joe. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Saturday Cup of Joe podcast. Please note that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Robert Wakefield and do not necessarily reflect the views of the National Association of Postal Supervisors. We welcome your questions and comments, so send those to SaturdayCupOfJoe@gmail.com.